Welcome to Corporate Power, Monopolies, Oligopolies, Monopsonies, and the Myth of Perfect Competition, Part 2. In the last video, we talked about the characteristics that differentiate market structures, 4 types of market structures, and did a deep dive into the pure or perfect competition market structure. Now let's go into more depth on monopolistic competition, oligopolies, pure monopolies, and monopsonies. Like pure competition, monopolistic competition is a market structure with many small firms competing against each other. However, firms in monopolistic competition sell similar but differentiated products, slightly differentiated products. For example, the Starbucks on the northeast corner of Park Avenue differs slightly from the Starbucks on the southeast corner. Why? Because even though each store sells identical products, Starbucks on the northeast corner has a monopoly in that area. Since it is the only place that sells coffee on that particular corner, it gives the firm a tiny amount of market power to charge higher prices within a certain range. The products are remarkably similar in monopolistic competition, but slight differences, such as location, become the basis for the firm's marketing and advertising. Differentiation in these markets can include a slight difference in style, a little brand name, location, packaging, advertisement, pricing strategies, targeting a clientele, and a little more features. Categories of monopolistic competition include fast food restaurants, tourist shops selling t-shirts, candle companies, auto repair shops, nail salons, and tutoring services. An example is products and services at spas. They're quite similar, but these companies will use certain marketing techniques to distinguish one from another. Can you list how one nail salon might differ from another? Slight differences, but you could probably name them. Can you name 5 things that differentiate one sneaker shop from another? There is little that separates Nike from Adidas and makeup and hair products as far as what constitutes these products and their use. Producers freely enter the market when profits are attractive. There's easy entry and exit in monopolistic competition, and it results in too many firms compared to the demand. And what's the result? Well, have you ever seen servers waiting in a restaurant because the restaurant seats are empty? Probably a lot. But have you ever wondered why the prices don't fall when the cafe is empty to lure in the diners? Instead, the cafe manager manages the uncertain revenue by not paying the workers very much. Servers and cooks sit around and they're not very productive. That's actually what happens in monopolistic competition. Just like in competition, prices in monopolistic competition are really low, the profits are slim, and the wages and the productivity are pretty miserable. Workers have extraordinarily little ability to get a wage increase in a monopolistic competition case. Firms in an oligopolistic structure would love to collude. They would love to set prices and agree on how much to produce to keep prices high. OPEC, the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, is a classic example of a colluding monopoly. But in America and the European Union, firms cannot legally collude like they do in OPEC. Instead, they signal to each other what price to set, and they signal to each other how much to produce. Watch this video. What is an oligopoly?
An oligopoly is a market with a very small number of major players. It is a highly concentrated market. An oligopoly does not mean that there are just 2 or 3 competitors. There could be dozens of them. However, there are typically only a few dominant ones. Let's suppose, for example, that a market has 20 competitors. However, the top 3 dominate 75% of the market. That market is an oligopoly. The dominant players in an oligopoly often work together. In other words, they collude. They collude as if they were a single monopoly and try to fix minimum prices. They also try to fix output volumes and other terms of business. In most oligopolies, each dominant rival is aware of what the major players are doing. They are aware because there are so few dominant players. Therefore, keeping an eye on each other is relatively easy. In the United States, the TV and fast internet sector is an oligopoly. Although there are many competitors, 5 currently dominate most of the market. In the United Kingdom, there are 4 major supermarket chains which control about 75% of the grocery market. The grocery market in the UK is therefore an oligopoly. In the smartphone market, Samsung and Apple together represent more than half of global sales. The sector has many other competitors, but they are much smaller. The smartphone market, therefore, is an oligopoly on a global scale.
If the dominant firms did not implicitly agree on a price, well, they would wage a losing price war where each firm lowers the price to get market share, which only encourages more price decreases. Oligopoly firms desperately signal to each other when to raise prices in tandem because they don't want to enter these price wars. Now that's good for workers. If they form a union that spans all the firms in an oligopoly, the United Auto Workers, for example, picks an auto firm to set a pattern wage. When the wage and the working conditions are set, the firms in the oligopoly structure know what the cost structure is. So every firm must pay the same wage, and the price of the truck or the price of the car produced is then very stable. So this is a case where the union helps the oligopoly. Becoming an oligopoly firm is difficult, so there aren't very many. But many are becoming super firms. The most powerful companies control the raw materials, the patents, and the financial and physical resources. And that creates barriers for any potential firms. Consider trying to start an auto company. Elon Musk broke in, but that's very rare. And Musk benefited from super government subsidies for electric cars and investors who don't demand profits yet. In oligopoly markets, products are similar but differentiated by superficial branding differences. Typically, there are 3 to 5 dominant firms, but this number can vary depending on the market. For instance, video game consoles are an oligopoly, with 3 companies, Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, dominating the market. As I said, other examples of oligopolies are in the tech industries, automobile, and gasoline industries. There are very few of our last market structure, pure monopolies, but it could be great to unionize or be employed by one. When a single firm controls an entire market and is the sole product producer, the firm has the highest market power. Hence, monopolies often reduce output, they increase prices, and they earn more profit. Because they have so much profit, they can raise wages, and they really don't have to raise prices. Public utilities are natural monopolies because they have economies of scale. That means a firm receives certain cost advantages due to its size in an extreme way. New firms cannot enter a utility market because it is too expensive to reach the necessary scale to compete. Typically, government monopolies or government regulations determine prices for natural monopolies, and they regulate wages. If workers organize and act cooperatively, they may be more successful at getting more pay from a monopoly or an oligopoly compared to a competitive firm or a monopolistic competitive firm. The theory of corporate power helps identify leverage points. We learned that oligopolies and monopolies have extra profits to invest. They strategize long-term, and they have extra profits to pay higher wages. If you are a union negotiator, negotiating with monopolies or oligopolies can be difficult because the firms are so powerful, but it could also be rewarding because those firms can afford to pay higher wages. Oligopolies and monopolies have the power to stop worker and union protective legislation like union protections, minimum wages, paid leave, and safety legislation. Powerful firms may also block pay transparency laws or non-compete laws. But oligopolies and monopolies have extra profits that they can share with workers. Modern monopsonies are everywhere. A monopsony is a market structure with just one buyer, with one just dominant employer. To some extent, every employer is a monopsonist because workers have inertia and they always don't scan the labor market for every job offer they might get every day. An easy-to-see example of a monopsonist is in towns where, say, Walmart is a dominant retailer and the dominant employer. Despite high profits, Walmart, as a monopsonist, can keep wages low because local workers have few employment alternatives. Walmart's average pay is exceptionally low. In 2022, Walmart guaranteed its workers a minimum starting wage of $12 per hour. So the Costco Wholesale Corporation pays new workers at least $16 per hour. That reflects Costco's different philosophy about paying workers, but it also reflects that Costco is usually in large cities or suburbs where workers have more choices. The Biden Treasury Department reported in 2022 that powerful firms and monopsonies hurt workers' ability to get wage increases. And what we all guessed, corporate power also increases profits. In video 1 and 2 of this lesson, we define different types of market structures, how they impact workers differently, and how the corporate competition differs for each structure. In the next lesson, we will consider the Federal Reserve's impact on workers.